Probably because I have to go to that camera first. That brings up the microphone. Then I can go back to this and tell you how much I'm crying over this. Look what happened to my Apple Watch. It went kersplat. So I was in the pool, and this came, I pulled my wrist out of the water, and this is full of, it's so sad. I really liked my Apple Watch. So apparently, this is a known issue where the battery expands ever so slightly, and I can't tell if, I mean, if I put my hand on it, it feels like maybe it's a little, I don't know. But it expands and it pops it off. To the point where Apple had actually done a expanded 3-year warranty to replace the watch or repair the watch, whatever they do, if that happened, which is awesome. Too bad I bought mine in June of 2015, so I am now watchless. So now I have to decide, do I want, I really do. Well, it's not a deciding if I want, it's deciding, do I want to spend the money? The new watch. I mean, the Series 3 is obviously a much better watch, so all told, you know, that's fine, but man, that sucks. I really didn't want to have to replace my watch this year. But there you go. That is the way it is. Good morning, everybody. What's going on in the chat room here? Hey, incidentally, for those of you watching live, stick around. I know you're not going to go anywhere anyway, but just to be sure, there's going to be a special announcement in between the main show and the Q&A show. I know that's obtuse. I know that's odd, but just trust me on this one. It's going to be between the two, so don't go anywhere. Just do. Who's here today? Bart, good morning. Color calibration, exciting stuff. I know Burns and Bart and Burns and construction podcast and more things for the Amazon cart. B&H today, my friends. This is going to be a B&H cart kind of a thing. Burns Tech, Jake Burns, everybody's here today. This is fantastic. Ooh, that reminds me actually, before I hit start on the show, I do need to fix something else. Bart says, you cracked the screen on yours, it was $200 to fix it. Yeah, it was going to be $249 to do a repair cycle on it. And, you know, they start at $399 for the new one, so it just didn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to replace it, so I'm not going to. Give me just a moment here to pull up the right thing I needed to have on this page, and then we will start the show. Sean, I am keeping secrets, especially from you, my friend. I keep all the secrets from you. That's just the way it works. Shh. Okay. I gotta make sure I get the web page up for this thing. There it is. Kaboom, boom. Okay, perfect. There's what I want. Excellent. All right. We are all set. Look, I even have the camera here so we can do a thing on here, and we got a thing here, and that's there. You guys want to do a show? We're ready to do a show? Ryan, hit that audio record, will you? Let's get this road on the show. It's Monday. You know how it is on Mondays. Everybody's all over the place. It's just madness. All right, let's probably hit record on this too. There's a good idea. There's a good chap. All right. Greetings, everybody. Let's have ourselves a show, shall we? Where's my button? I gotta get that cable's in the way. This very long cable in here is getting in my way. There we go. That'll work. I have no idea what I'm doing today. Today we're talking about color calibration, calibrating your screens. Is it worth it? Should you do it? And if you do, what are you going to use? Greetings and salutations. Good morning and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live 3 times a week show all about video and photo and live streaming and stuff and that general topic of area. Anyway, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific here at youtube.com/PhotoJoseph. It is a live show, so if you're participating live, you get to participate in the comments in the chat room. I get to pull you guys up here and say hello to you and talk about secrets and all kinds of fun stuff, which is, of course, the best part of the show, being able to participate live. So we're going to do the quick show, then we'll do a quick little break over, turn over to the Q&A. We'll answer all the Qs there, or at least try to. We'll do our best. So today we're talking about color calibration. I picked this up from B&H. This is the Spyder5Pro. This is a handy-dandy little device for slapping on your screen and doing color calibration. The basic idea is quite simple. This is a, I think they call it color meter. It measures the color. Let's take a quick look at this thing over at B&H. $189 for this little doohickey here, the Datacolor Spyder5Pro display calibration system. That is what we're working with today. The idea is you put this thing on your screen. You actually slap it onto the screen here. And the software that it comes with runs through a series of color displays while this thing monitors it. And then it builds what you could effectively call a LUT. For those who are used to working with LUTs, it's remapping your color space. You load that profile and it says, okay, your monitor is outputting this. But what we really want is this shade of red to look like this and this blue to look like that and so on. And it remaps the colors to give you what is presumably an accurate color space. Now, this begs the question, do you need to do this? Let's start off with the yes, you do need to do this. If you're printing at home, studio, whatever, if you're printing, if you own a high-end color printer and you're working on your photographs and you're obviously doing your own color tweaking to those photos and then printing them, then you absolutely, unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, want to do color calibration. I actually don't know how, I don't think this ties into print calibration. I don't do print. I've never, ever had a printer that I could calibrate. So I know nothing about that space, but I do know that if you are going to print, then you want it to be calibrated. This way, what you see on screen is going to, as closely as possible, represent what you see on paper. It's never going to be exactly accurate, right? Because you're talking about a reflective versus a transmittive surface. You've got paper that is reflecting light, boom, boom. You've got a screen that is transmitting light. So they're always going to be a difference, but this allows you to get them as close as possible so that you can have something when you put them side by side, you go, yep, that was good. So in that case, no question about it, you need to calibrate. But many of us only go to screen. We do our work and then we put it up online, put it on the YouTubes, put it on, well, for photographs, putting it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. We're putting it on our web pages, we're putting it on our galleries and our smug bag galleries and so on. And we have absolutely this much control over what other people's displays look like. So I have always approached this from the sense of if you are not printing, then you probably really don't need color calibration, because if I calibrate my monitor and I get my monitor technically accurate, and then I color grade to get it looking the way that I want, and then I put it on your monitor and your monitor is not color calibrated, well, the picture on your screen is not gonna look the same way it did on mine. So my theory would be that basically I'm gonna assume, rightfully so, that the vast majority of people have not calibrated their screens, because they haven't, and therefore I want to make my image look as good as possible on my uncalibrated screen. And if I'm going to be really precise about it, well, as precise as one can be, I'm going to look at it on multiple uncalibrated displays. I've got an Apple laptop here, I might look at it on my iMac screen, I might even pull it over to my iPad and see, and now I've got this whole Apple thing going. And maybe if I've got access to a PC, I'm going to look at it there, and then you get like gamma shifts on PCs that can be a bit of a problem too. But at least I'm looking at it the way most people are going to look at it. As far as knowing whether it's accurate or not, my advice has always been, and I've talked about this a whole bunch, is to ensure that your black and your white points are actually black and white. And looking at your screen, forget that. That is looking at the numbers. You take the eyedropper, you bring up a RGB histogram, whatever your preferred way is, and you ensure that when you're looking at a neutral color, a black, a white, a gray, something in between, that it is truly neutral, right? When you look at the RGB readouts, if it's 200, 200, 200, that's neutral. If it's 200, 200, 190, it's not. You're off a little bit. So you adjust your colors until that's accurate. Forget about what you see on screen. You get your whites, your blacks, your neutrals, accurate, technically accurate, and that is about the best that you can hope for. So that's if you are not going to go to print. But then we get into the space of video. We're in space of video. Again, you do have other controls. You got Rec 7 on color spaces and all these different color spaces you have to deal with, and other TVs that are calibrated, not calibrated, and so on. And in this situation, I think it gets a little bit different, because you do want it to be as accurate as possible, because the spread of what's going on out there is so much different. Like if you walk into a Costco or Best Buy or something and you walk by the TV displays, they all look massively different. So at this point, you really do want to be putting out something that is as true, as neutral, as accurate as possible. Now, you could still want to do it as accurate as possible for photos on your screen and then switch back and forth and try and see, well, maybe find a balance between them. And that is where this guy comes in. If you want to have that really as accurate as possible, yet still switch over to look at what it's going to look like on a non-calibrated screen, then you got to calibrate. If you are printing, you got to calibrate. And even if you're printing, not your own printer, but you're shipping out to print, probably a good idea to calibrate too. So there are definitely spaces to calibrate. There are reasons to calibrate. And while I have been quite bullish on not calibrating, I am starting to change my attitude a little bit about it. And I just got this thing on Friday, and I calibrated my 2 screens that I'm using in my room there. And one of the cool things about it is it makes the 2 match. Now, they're very different panels, very different manufacturers, so it's not a perfect, flawless match, but it's way closer than it was before. So let's take a look at that. And we're going to look at how this thing works, but I want to show you first the before and after. So here's this. These are my 2 screens side by side without calibration. Now, one of the things I will say that it did, which was really surprisingly cool to me, was it had me adjust the brightness of my screen, and I had my screens way too bright. They were way too bright. So they've been toned down quite a bit based off of the calibration, based off of what it says you should do. And it does that by actually combination of monitoring the light in the room itself and then monitoring the light coming out of the display. And it had me bring them way down. And now that they're down, they're actually a lot easier to look at. Before I was honest, I was kind of like, this is a little bit much. You know, you kind of don't want to turn down the brightness of your screen because it looks so good. But I realized it actually is a lot better when it's dimmer. So it had me calibrate, adjust the brightness on the two screens to get them to match. So here's this display here is with the brightness adjusted. I didn't want to touch my brightness, but that is uncalibrated versus calibrated. Now look at the massive, let's go full screen on this, the massive difference between these two. Now, this is uncalibrated, and this is clearly very, very cold. The whites are very, very blue. We go to calibrated, and I would say it actually feels kind of warm. I'm looking at it going, I think this is really warm. But I've also been looking at it so cold for so long that I think that my eyes and my brain needs a little time to reset. Like I said, I just did this on Friday when I walked in this morning, and I honestly felt a little bit less like it was overly warm. So we'll give it some time, see how it goes. But when we look at the before and after in here, it is a huge, huge difference. So we're obviously looking at a picture of an X-Rite color checker, and even in here, when you look closely, you can see some differences between the two, whereas this one, they are matching much more cleanly, much nicer. So it is an interesting thing to do. So if you are interested in this space, if you're interested in calibrating, then I'm going to recommend you pick one of these up because it's kind of awesome. Now, let's take a look at the actual process of doing it. Let me get out a full screen on here. And it really is super easy. I'm not going to show you the whole process here, but basically you install the software, obviously. Incidentally, the software installer is like written in 1984 or something. It keeps coming up with not optimized for your computer. It still works fine. Just run through it, ignore the warnings, and just keep going. It works, but it's like, it seems to be kind of old software. You'll start by doing a little interview. It says, has your monitor been on for at least half an hour so it's fully warmed up? Is your room environment set the way you like it, and so on. And then it'll run through a list of the things that it's going to do the calibration. And one of the options is to adjust the brightness on your screen. And here's an interesting thing. When I did it in my room, in my studio, it was, in my office rather, it was, by default it wanted to adjust the brightness. When I did it out here and I told it that I was on a laptop, it disabled that. It said recommended not doing that. And I think that's because it knows as you move around, your brightness is going to have to adjust because your environment is not controlled. I overrode that and said, no, go ahead and do the brightness. And because I'm in this room, it said way too bright, which it is. This is too bright to be doing any kind of color accurate work because obviously this is set up for being on camera. So we've kind of ignored that part. I just went, okay, fine, don't do the brightness, bypass that. And then the next step of it, it brings up a screen here and it says, place the Spyder on the display as shown. You place it here and then hit next. So that's what we're going to do. Let's take a look at this view. You take, oh, actually here, let me do this first. Let me do a quick little close-up because I haven't shown you this thing yet. So this is the Spyder itself. This is effectively a lens cap / counterweight for holding it off the back end of your monitor. There's the sensors in there, so just like any camera lens when you're not using it, keep it nicely protected. It has a 1/4-20 thing on the bottom. I don't really know why, but it does. Anyway, but that's it. That's all there is to it. Very, very simple, very straightforward. When you do the room environment reading, you just leave it closed like this. You set it on your desk next to the screen, and that sensor there monitors the brightness. And then when you do the actual screen test, you just put this on the display itself. So let's go ahead and back to this view. I'm going to put this over. You use the, as a kind of a counterweight, and I realize this is a bit dark there. Sorry, the lights are not pointing in the right direction for this. But we just put that on there, and then I click next, and it starts running through a calibration cycle. And that's it. It's going to bring it up white, and it's going to bring up a bunch of different colors, and it's going to base the calibration off of that. So I'm not going to let it go through the whole thing, because it'll take a little while to do. But that's it. I'll throw it back up when it throws up a pretty color. But it goes through black and white and RGB, and gray. It's doing a gray right now. It does a bunch of different tones, and it bases it off of that. And then it creates a profile. And you can name the profile. Look, now it's in red. You can you can name the profile whatever you want in there. I think it's a good idea to put a date on it so you know, and then you can have it remind you every whatever you want, recommended as every month, to recalibrate. And then so once a month it pops up and says, hey, it's time to recalibrate, and you pop that on. Now, going back to the discussion in my other room, I've got my iMac and then the BenQ 4K 32-inch display that's next to it, which incidentally, I will be doing a video on. I've been using it for a while. That's going to be coming up soon. The BenQ has its own calibration software in it, which is compatible with the Spyder. So oh, there's already done. Oh no, here, look, it's doing the brightness thing now. So you can see here, it is adjusting screen brightness because I did leave that on. Let me actually bring it up this view. And so while you obviously can't see it if I adjust the brightness on my screen, I would adjust the brightness and then click this update button. It rereads it, and it says the target is 200 CD over M squared, whatever that means. So there I turned it down too much, so I'll bring the brightness up a little bit, hit update again, it rereads it, and it determines whether you have to adjust your brightness anymore. Now what's kind of funny is that so it's way over 260, anyway, it's obviously it's not ideal for this setup in here. But that's how it adjusts the brightness. It tells you, okay, adjust the brightness here, there, get it into the target range. Incidentally, this is a really good point. I'm glad this came up. I discovered this. You know how you've got your brightness display buttons on your computer keyboard, on a Mac, I have no idea what's on a PC, to make it brighter or darker? Those increments are quite big. So in this case, what I needed to do on my other room was bring this up and go into displays. Also, this is confused because it sees my mirrored display and it doesn't know exactly what it's calibrating. I had to go in here and display and adjust the brightness on this. If you do it here, you have a lot more accuracy than if you use the button. See how much it bumps with each button? So that's one hit. That's sliding. That's how much it's bumping. So it's a lot. So you can do this manually a lot more precise. So just FYI on there. If you're doing it and you're not able to get the brightness accurate enough, open that display and grab the little slider. Anyway. So that's about it, right? And then, like I said, in a month, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you need to do this again, and that's all there is to it. So the BenQ, I was saying, it has its own built-in calibration software, which is compatible with a variety of hardware, the Spyder5Pro being one of them. So so far, I've only used it with the Spyder software. My next step will be to use it using their own software and see if that's any different, see if it's any more accurate. I mean, I don't know how you really tell. Mainly, though, I want to see how it looks compared to the iMac, if it gets the two closer to being accurate or closer to the same than they are now. So that's it. That's really it. That's super straightforward. Plug it, install the software, plug it in, run through the wizard, and you're done. It really doesn't take much to do. And you can move it around all your different computers and recalibrate all of them. It's pretty straightforward. So that is all there is to it. I recommend. I think for most people, I think it's worth doing. For most photographers who are serious about their color, I think it's worth doing. But I think you really want to be aware that most people will not be looking at a calibrated screen, and so you should be going back and forth. And of course, if you're printing, then even if you're not printing yourself, then it's great to be sending your printer something that looks good on your screen, because they're going to be working with a calibrated screen. The single most important thing, though, at the end of the day, is ensuring that your neutral tones, your blacks, grays, and whites, are truly neutral. And that's with the eyedropper or looking at the histogram, vectorscope, however you're working. Make sure that your whites are neutral, and then you know that your colors are true. And if you decide you want to make your whites cooler, well, then that is a creative decision, but at least you know that you're starting with a neutral point. Okay? All right, guys, that's it. Let's switch over to the Q&A. We'll be right back. Okay, before we go to the Q&A, here's the little pre-thing I told you before. Stick around for this. Ryan is about to drop a link in here. I know this is a little bit weird. Let me quit this Spyder thing. But I don't understand why, but this is how I have to do it. If you are thinking about buying one of these, I saw a couple people said they just bought one. Hope you kept the receipt, because right now for the next, well, until midnight Eastern time, here's the regular page. This is the deal zone at B&H right now. So you've got 11 hours left, 11 hours and 9 minutes from the moment that we are seeing this live, and it is half off. It's only 95 bucks. So this is why we're doing the show today. A little bit odd format. I know I can't talk about it during the main show because this obviously show will live on, but during the live show, I get to tell you that it is half price right now. So yeah, that's a hell of a deal. That's why I jumped on this. I had B&H ship this out to me, and I get to tell you about it now. So that's that. Now, Ryan's posted the link in there. You can grab that link, grab it quick, and he's going to delete that because we don't want that showing up in the scrolling feed on here as I put the Q&A up. And I guess that's it. We will, if you missed the link when Ryan's got it in there, just go to B&H and click on the Deal Zone thing, although I'd love it if you use my affiliate link. So once this goes live, which we'll get it up as soon as possible this morning, we're not going to wait until 3 o'clock, we'll post that link out there. And I'll also share it on social media. So grab that link right now if you can. If you miss it for whatever reason, just search my social media, search Twitter immediately after the show, and we'll post it there as well. And then we'll have the video up with that link later. And then once the Deal Zone goes away, all evidence of that will evaporate. So that's that, guys. Hell of a deal, $95, half off, boom. Okay, now we can do the Q&A. Ryan, it's time to delete that link. Q&A time. Greetings and salutations once again. Welcome to PhotoJoseph. In a moment, we're in the Q&A portion of the show, answering all the Qs, hopefully A-ing the Qs, whatever, that have come up in the previous live show. We were just talking about this Datacolor Spyder5Pro, calibrating your screen, should you, would you, and if you're going to do it, then this is a pretty good tool to do it with. And if you want to know anything about that, then, well, if you missed the show somehow, click up here and watch that show. Now we're going to hit the Q&A. So there's been a bunch of stuff flying by. Remember, if you have a question, it doesn't have to be just about this. You can ask anything you want. Make sure you put @PhotoJoseph in front of it on the screen, and that way I see it like, where'd they go? Where you go? Like this. And Sean's asking about secrets. I am keeping secrets. Bart says, I never think I need to calibrate until after I do it and look at the before and after. It's amazing how out of whack it can get. True, right? Your eyes, we get very used to things being incorrect. Our brain will compensate and say, I know that is supposed to be white, therefore it is white. And when you measure it, you go, whoa, that is totally not white. So it's interesting to see how much of a shift it is. In the previous show, in the main show, I commented on how once mine was calibrated, I felt like it was way too warm, but then flipping back to the uncalibrated, it's now obviously way too cold. And so my brain is sitting somewhere between them, but I believe that after time of looking at the warmer, well, it is warmer screen, but the accurate screen, I will no longer feel that it's warmer. And hopefully that is actually the case. Bart says, I calibrate my monitors for video color grading. Excellent. Then it all gets thrown out the window depending on what video compression I export with, and if it goes to YouTube, it changes again. Well, that's interesting you say that, because I used to have issues with colors getting all out of whack going to YouTube. And that stopped happening. And I'm trying to remember, I think part of it had to do with how it was being shot in the camera, using the right color. Gosh, I wish I remember this. This was quite a few years ago. It was pre-GH5, I was shooting with GH4s. Ooh, God, I should remember what it was. Bart, I may have to look into that a little bit more for you, because I honestly don't remember why it was, but I fixed that. Now, when I render out my videos, and I'm editing in Final Cut, rendering out a compressor, which that in itself might have something to do with it, because I was working with an editor who was cutting in Premiere for another project that I was on, and his stuff up to YouTube did look different. And I think at that point I just had him render a ProRes file, give it to me, and then I rendered it out of compressor, and it was fine. That was a couple years ago too, so I might be wrong on that as well. But I know that today I don't have that problem anymore, but I know that I used to. Again, I'm editing in Final Cut, exporting out a compressor, and rendering. I don't render straight to YouTube. I do from Final Cut, send a compressor. In compressor, I use a YouTube preset that I have tweaked a little bit. I've upped the bit rate quite a bit because I've got the bandwidth, so I may as well push a really high bit rate file up there. And yeah, that's about it. But it doesn't shift anymore. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. Interesting that you bring that up, though. Sorry I don't have a way to fix that for you. Jake says, I noticed that you do lose detail when your screen is too bright. Yeah, overexposing is bad. I was doing something with this camera here, the one that you're looking at, for a recording, and I had it too bright, and I was getting all this fringing, and I realized how overexposed I was when I pulled it down. The fringing went away. So yeah, overexposing can be bad for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, on your screen, when you're looking at a screen that is too bright, you end up kind of squinting at it, and you lose some of the details. It's interesting. You really do want to get it just right. Burns says, it takes a bit to get used to looking at calibrated, uncalibrated. I know I didn't like mine calibrated, but I got used to it after an hour or so. Oh, there you go. SRO says, the original software for my X-Rite i1 Photo Pro doesn't work in Windows 10. Ugh. New software costs 400 pounds. Are you kidding? The equipment originally cost me 1,000 pounds. Yikes. Whew. Yeah, this stuff gets expensive. I think at $189, this thing is a pretty good price. I know I've owned one of these once before, not the Spyder. I don't remember what brand it was. A long time ago. I just kind of stopped using it. But I certainly didn't spend 1,000 pounds on it. Wow. Wayne, you just touched on my big beef with these devices, software. Datacolor and that other company do not update very often, and yes, you do end up with error messages from time to time. Yeah, the software that this comes with is definitely antiquated. It feels like it was written a very long time ago, but it worked. So just bypass the error message, and it worked just fine. Ooh, Burnstack, CDM2 is Candela's per square meter. Excellent, thank you. I knew there was a reading. It was talking about the brightness reading of the thing. It told me what to adjust. What's going on in my other room. It's the iMac and then the external monitor plugged into that. The external monitor has become the primary monitor. Doesn't matter, but it is. And yeah, the software will calibrate both. And that's a big part of it, is trying to get them to match. I think that a laptop display is going to be harder to match a external display than two external displays, being like an iMac and the BenQ that I've got. I could be wrong on that. I know the laptop displays used to be totally different technology that were virtually impossible to get color accurate, but they've gotten so much better over the last several years, over the last decade, that that may not be the case anymore. But I remember back when I was trying to calibrate this to an external, heck, it might have even been a CRT, it was impossible. Bart says, my room changes so much. Yeah, I like having my blackout curtain open for a lot of the day. Pointless to have blackout curtains. I calibrate and then put the brightness where I want it. That's an interesting point as well. If your room brightness is changing constantly, then your brightness of the screen needs to change as well. And if you have, like, I see these really cool pictures that people post on social media or do videos around on YouTube of their editing space, and it's like this really awesome office with these purple blue LED lights around. You're like, man, that looks really cool. But that's a total horrific thing for color calibration. Like, you need your eyes neutral. My room is too dark right now. I need to fix that. I need to fix a lot of things in my office. But yeah, you want to have a room that's a little bit bright, definitely not too bright, not too dark, and not changing to keep things ideal. It's definitely the case. Jake says, I use Vimeo 1080 presets. Oh, okay, in Premiere when rendering for YouTube. Back here. When rendering for YouTube, generally with the Adobe Media Encoder, I like the color and quality better than the YouTube presets. Okay, so you're using Premiere and Media Encoder using the Vimeo. That's great advice. So yeah, there you go. There's something else to try as well. Excellent. Bart says, did you know you can color calibrate Atomos monitors? Too bad they partnered with X-Rite instead of Datacolor. I forgot about that, but you're right. So it only works with the X-Rite? That's too bad. I forgot all about that. Yeah, I've got my Ninja sitting over here. My Ninja Inferno, actually, my Ninja Assassin, the older one. The internal battery died, so every time I turned it off, the clock got reset. I got tired of that, so I shipped it back to Atomos. It is on its way back to me with a brand new battery in it. Wayne says, I recalibrated yesterday and last night got the message again that you need to recalibrate. How do you have your warning message set to go every 24 hours? That's odd. The default was a month and you could change it, but that's certainly not good. Here's an interesting point though. So is it the software that's telling you, or is it something else? Like my BenQ monitor, because it has its own built-in calibration thing, after I ran the calibration with this, the internal calibrating tools on the BenQ had no idea that I'd done this, right? Because it was totally independent of that. So it is still popping up a warning every time I turn it on saying, you need to recalibrate. So maybe that's what you're seeing. And like I said, I will do a calibration with the BenQ's internal workings along with the Spyder, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, interesting. Okay. Burns says, my only dislike to these calibration tools, they use software settings and apply when the PC boots. Okay, being able to change the color, hue, brightness, etc. in the monitor would make it better. Well, okay, so I don't totally disagree. However, you can, okay, PCs I can't speak to, but on a Mac, you can run through a based off of the eye calibration profile thing, right? You go in and it brings up a grid pattern, you adjust until the brightness, until the things look the same, and until the apple disappears, and this whole weird setup. It's never been terribly accurate, but it doesn't adjust colors. It's more about brightness and contrast. I guess, does it? Maybe it does a little bit of color. Anyway, the whole point is it's building one that is, I guess it's hardware-based. I guess you'd call it hardware-based, I don't know, but it's built into the operating system. But it's nowhere near as accurate, and you're not doing a full color profile. You're not having an external thing reading it. You're just relying on your eye reading it, going, yeah, those look the same. The apple disappeared, I guess. But for what this is doing, like I said in the beginning, it is effectively applying a LUT. So yeah, it does have to load the OS and then load this in, but I guess I don't really see what the problem with that is. This is why you monitor every month, because as monitors age, they change, and so this way you can keep up on it, keep it accurate, and doing calibration every month should be plenty. But yeah, I guess I'm not really sure what the problem is with that. It works the way it's supposed to work. It does load that LUT and recalibrate what you see. And it's the only physical adjustment you make on the monitor is brightness, at least when using this one. And you don't change, you reset contrast to neutral, you set your color, white balance to 6500, assuming that you can, and then adjust your brightness based off of what this tells you to do, and that's it. Wayne Carey, don't get me wrong, I love this thing, but the software's a little buggy on recalibration needs. Well, there you go. Burns Tech, most, not all PC monitors have a user setting to let you choose the RGB levels independently. Your BenQ may have that. Oh, okay, fair enough. Bart says, did I miss featuring of the BenQ monitor? No, Bart, the only thing I did with the BenQ was I showed, let me pull this up, this photo of a before and after. There's my iMac next to the BenQ. That was after calibration, before calibration. I am going to do a thing on the BenQ. It's It's a fabulous display. I'm loving using it. There's still other stuff that I need to do and test with it. It's HDR capable. There's a whole bunch of other things I need to do before I do my video on it, but we're getting there. We're getting closer. I'm really giving it a proper use before I do a video on it. All right, let's see here. Where were we? Bring this back up. Burn check. If you wipe out your system, you have to start from scratch if you don't have it backed up. The calibration? Well, sure, but it's not a big deal. I mean, the initial calibration takes longer, but we're still talking like 5 minutes. It's not like it's a huge, all-day affair. Construction podcast, a bit off topic, no worries. How is the GX9 compared to the G9 for image quality? I don't know. I never got a GX9. It is not being pushed hard in the United States, so I never did get my hands on one. Looks like a sweet little camera, but the GX80, it's not necessarily an upgrade to the GX85. It's kind of a side grade. It has some different feature sets, so the GX85 is still the one that we're primarily working with, and I still absolutely love the GX85. G9 is a better image quality than the GX85, but I can't compare G9 to GX9. Sorry, I've never gotten my hands on one. So I'm sure somebody's done a video on it. Others say it's antiquated. Yeah, pick this up from B&H and off we go. Just wondering if you knew, because the whole question, Bart says Spyder5, it doesn't say Pro on it. And when I ran this for the second time, talk about annoying, it started trying to upsell me. For $30 more, you can have Spyder5Pro Plus, and then you can get Elite. So I guess it is just software, which I guess is good, but I don't know what the differences are. Sorry, I didn't look. Probably should have done that, but I didn't look. You'll have to look that one up yourself. Sorry, my friend. All right, guys, that's it. We're out of here. Thanks a bunch for tuning in today. That was a fun show. Interesting color calibration. Like I said in the beginning, I used to be pretty bullish against it, but I think that it is worth doing. If you're doing print, doing video, definitely worth doing. Even if you're just sharing on Instagram and so on, it's probably worth doing, but comparing to your uncalibrated screen, and without a doubt, make sure that your neutrals, your whites, your blacks, your grays are truly neutral, at least that you're tuning in today. We'll see you on Wednesday, where we're going to be talking about the platypod, not the